Hello and welcome to the Child Psych Podcast. I'm Tanya Johnson, registered psychologist, registered play therapist, co-founder of the Institute of Child Psychology. Today, we are thrilled to have Dr. Kelli Palfy with us. Dr. Kelli is a retired RCMP officer and now works as a registered psychologist with a specialization in working with trauma-related issues, specifically adult male survivors of sexual abuse, as well as issues associated with grief, loss, bullying, harassment in the workplace. Kelli has two incredible books, Men Too, Unspoken Truths About Male Sexual Abuse, and her newest book, Speaking the Truth in Love, A Mother's Guide to Keeping Her Son Safe. Welcome, Dr. Kelli.
Thank you, Tanya. It's wonderful to be here.
I've had the wonderful pleasure of working with you before, and I was so excited to get you onto the podcast because I think that your work is so incredibly impactful and also an area that we often don't hear a lot about still today in 2025.
Yes. Not enough. We don't hear enough about it. People are talking a bit more, but still not.
No, we really don't. Kelli, can you tell us a little bit about your background, both your time at the RCMP and then also what led you to really dedicate your life's work to male survivors of sexual abuse?
There is like a 45-minute version of that question that I tell people, but I'll give you the short version.
We'll take the Coles note.
Yeah, basically, I was working in the RCMP. It was in the ICE unit. Sheldon Kennedy came and talked to us. He gave us a lecture. So Sheldon Kennedy, former pro hockey player, abused by his coach. He was one of the first men to come forward, even before Theo Fleury came forward. And he came and gave us a private lecture. And he was shaking. And Tanya, to be honest, I had so much of my own trauma at that point in time. I was in the middle of all my bullying and stuff. But he was shaking, and I just, something made me just listen. I knew he had a really important message, and it just rocked my world. He shared about his abuse, and he shared about why he didn't share it. And I mean, here I am working in the ICE unit, and we're having all of the integrated child exploitation unit, and we're having all these files come in of, you know, the ones that were mostly applicable would be possession of child pornographic images and distribution. So people emailing back and forth and file sharing, which was really big in the 90s and early 2000s, file sharing. So we would get, wind of these files, and we would go do a search warrant and see somebody's computer and get all their email addresses and see what they were doing. And we were seeing images of boys as well. So, between Sheldon Kennedy talking to us and these images, and, just there was a lot of conviction myself after, because we missed it initially. We didn't think that it was that big of a deal until, I always say God opened my eyes. But yeah, I just remember when Sheldon Kennedy spoke to us, my heart really went out for him, and I wanted to make a difference, but I was really busy with child files. And then I would say fast forward when I left the RCMP from bullying, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, right? Like, I had wanted to be a criminal profiler. And then one of my profs mentioned that he worked at this place called the BC Society for Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse. And I swear, Tanya, a little light turned on the side of me. I was like, oh, this is important. I can make a difference. I've seen it. And I'm a woman. Nobody's going to fight me, right? So I did my internship there, and I really connected with the guys. I used to be so hard on men. I just loved building them up instead, I don't know. The whole thing, what I saw, what I learned, just wanting to make a difference, I guess. Yeah. I wanted to know why they weren't reporting. So at that point in time, I made the decision that if I went on to do my PhD, I was going to research why boys and men were not reporting. And then that whole process really opened my eyes too, to a lot of the reasons why they weren't reporting, which we'll get into, I'm sure.
So, Dr. Kelli, when you heard Sheldon Kennedy speak, that was years and years and years ago, yet so much of this still remains hidden today. Why do you think that's happening still?
A lot of reasons, but a lot of them are gender kind of issues, the gender norms that are out there still. The grooming process is huge for boys. So we refer to them as preferential child molesters. They will target a specific age and gender of preference. They'll literally get themselves into these environments where they have the credentials, where they, have access to their age and gender of preference, which in this case we're talking about boys. So they'll become the coach, they'll become the physiotherapist, the doctor, the scout, whatever they need to be in that position of trust. And, of course, the boys have an affection for them because they're helping them, right? So lots of times it's the coach, which is crazy, or the person that seems to be the one helping them the most is often the one that's also grooming them. So these boys develop an affection for them. And, the sexual abuse doesn't typically start, the first day. It's a process. They get the credentials, they win the parents' trust, they win the right to be alone with that child because the parents now trust them. They're in their inner circle. A lot of people find it hard to believe that a pedophile will go to that much effort to have access to their children. And they build this facade that, these guys are the good guys, these guys are the safe guys, right? But pedophiles will purposely infiltrate themselves into environments, again, where they can get access to their age and gender of preference. So if, for example, a pedophile is interested in boys 11 to 17, he's going to go get the education to be a teacher and take a special interest in maybe even whatever he's good at, like basketball or hockey or football or whatever, and he will become the coach or he'll become the physiotherapist and he will work with that population. And he will have children that he doesn't offend against too, because, if he's ever called out on it, everybody says he's safe. These guys say he's safe, right? And then, again, he'll target this one little boy who's already got a history of lying, whose dad's an alcoholic, or whose mom's, a single parent and working 3 jobs and not available to him. So the pedophile will get themselves into this career, very calculated, will target the boy that they think they'll have the most success in, maybe the boy who needs the attention, right? The boy who's being bullied, or the boy whose parents are too busy, or the boy who just really wants his approval, right? Maybe the parents are great parents, but this kid idolizes the coach. Perfect. I'll take him away, right? He'll highlight this kid. I see your son's got special talent, and he'll, win the favor of the parents. Even like he'll go over to the parents' house and have dinner with them, shake dad's hand, go camping with them. It's crazy the level of premeditation, but it's all towards this one goal.
Oh, it's absolutely frightening. Absolutely frightening.
It is terrifying, I know. But actually, the good news, Tanya, is that in my new book, I talk about the warning signs to watch for. Like, for example, when something seems too good to be true, right? When the coach is paying just a little bit too much attention, when he gives you the invitation to separate from the rest of the crowd somehow, I want to take your son I'm going to Ontario. I want to take him to a Blue Jays game. I know he's a Blue Jays fan, but of course he's right, which seems like, this wonderful opportunity, but he's creating that opportunity. He's creating that perfect environment where he can have the kid alone. So yeah, lots of examples of what to watch for.
Dr. Kelli, can we jump there? Let's just go right there right now. Some of those red flags, what do they look like? So one, we start to create opportunities where the child will be alone with this person. What are the other things that parents need to kind of watch out for?
Well, like the actual offender himself, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes they won't have a lot of healthy adult relationships. Their focus will entirely be on children, right? We really got to watch for, if the kids go to their house, if you happen to go to their house, is their artwork directed more towards children, or is it directed more towards adults? Do they have any hobbies? Do they have a life of their own? Even their history, have they got a lot of moves under their belt? That kind of stuff. Other red flags. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the kid's age, obviously, right? But like, I remember one of my clients years ago saying she came home it was a female, but it could happen to a boy too. She came home from daycare. She was really young and she didn't know how to describe what was happening. So she just told her parents, she's like, Mommy, I don't like the games we play. And her parents just said, well, play nice, Meanwhile, she was being sexually abused by 3 older boys. So my advice would be, if a child says, I don't like what we're doing, say, show me what he's doing. What don't you like about it? Or what are you guys doing that you don't like? Just check in with your kids when they've been outside of your eyes, right?
Yeah. And then, Dr. Kelli, how does all of this shift and change as our kids spend more and more time online and unfortunately at younger and younger ages? What does online learning look like? What do we need to watch out for?
Well, right now I know boys 11 to 17 are the most targeted group. That's what I'm hearing from the police. I gave them a lecture a few months back and they told me that. So, like, pedophiles will target them through any media platform they can get access into. So you're here in Edmonton area, I just went to the Little Warriors Luncheon and they had a family from Edmonton who their son was it their daughter? Maybe it was their daughter. I think it was their daughter. My apologies, but it could happen to a boy too. Was lured via his school device. Someone targeted, they came and abducted him because the kid was posting pictures of himself, pictures of his neighborhood or whatever, and the pedophile figured out what school he went to or she went to and actually abducted them. And the child actually managed to escape themselves and is alive and getting the help it needs. But just in case anybody's worried about that. But my point is, like, these are really real threats. Like, anywhere, any device that connects to people from the outside really has to be monitored. And even the school device, they didn't think it could be, somebody from the outside could get in, but they did. So honestly, I really think we need to be open with our kids about the risks of this nowadays, unfortunately, and just educate them a little bit because and Tanya, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I mean, fear is learned, right? As adults, we know how horrible that would be. We know the intent of an offender. But simply teaching a child who has no experience of that there are people out there that can't be trusted, teaching them, I'm sure this is stuff that you go through with your parents, teaching them, like, how do you provide psychoeducation to a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old? Like, at what, so making sure they do that and leaving the lines of communication open so that, for example, if something happens, there's a specific word that you're supposed to use just so you can get my attention, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, gaming platforms, social media platforms, they're all. So sorry, you asked me what does it look like? The offender will often in say a social media platform, when targeting boys, they'll often do their homework based on that boy's other posts and stuff, or where they go to school, or other kids. They'll figure out, for example, if there's a girl that they like, and then they'll post a picture of that girl or something, or pretend to be that girl and engage in conversation, convince the boy to send illicit photos eventually, and then blackmail them. That's a really, really common one.
When we think
People,
about just how little they are still, just to have to deal with that, I don't even know how, as an adult, I have a hard time wrapping my head around what this means. I can't even imagine as a young child.
yeah, and I'm supporting a man that this happened to. He sent illicit photos to a woman, and she made them public, and he lost his position in where he was working. But Tanya, yeah, like, this is suicide rates are increasing because of this. It's very sad.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely devastating. Dr. Kelly, some of the common myths that parents or even professionals believe around sexual abuse, what does it look like and what is the impact of that?
I think the most common ones parents now need to really accept is that male sexual abuse is not rare. They think it is. They think it doesn't happen. They think it won't happen to their kids. They think it can't. They think they can trust everyone in their circle. And I'm not trying to be rude, but pedophiles work really, really hard to convince parents that they're trustworthy. And another myth would be that they can rely on professionals in that child's environment to keep them safe. But again, pedophiles are very calculated. They will, for example, let's say a pedophile becomes a physiotherapist. Well, now he needs a gatekeeper, right? He needs someone who's gonna bring the child into the room or whatever. And he's gonna hire. People often wonder, why did she get the job? She's not near as qualified as me. Well, she got the job because she's a single parent with 2 kids at home who needs to keep her job and will keep her damn mouth shut, right? And so we call them enablers. There's a whole chapter on it in my new book. But they say, I read a book called The Armies of Enablers, and he said that every victim story has at least one witness that saw something that caused them concern but did nothing. And so, yeah, so pedophiles are that calculated. I know, hey? But we think, oh, well, the school is only going to hire people that are trustworthy. Well, not if the school's not the safe place, right?
And Dr. Kelly, really what I'm hearing you say today is in helping to keep our children safe is that we need to make sure we have those open lines of communication, that we stay curious. When our child says something that feels a little bit off, not to just let it go. And then also just not to walk around with distrust, but not to just automatically go like, oh, this person's is a professional or they are a person of authority, to always keep curious and to trust your gut.
Yes, and Tanya, I'm not creating this stuff talking about it, right? It's already going on. I'm just helping parents become aware to their techniques and be able to know when they should pay more attention to something, right? Oh, if the coach invites my son to go away on a weekend away, I don't like that idea if they're going to be alone. Why are there not other boys invited, right? Why is he so, or maybe I'll come too, and we can all go and me and my son will share a hotel room, that kind of thing.
Huge. I think that message is so incredibly important. Is just stay aware, stay alert as a parent, trying to make sure that your child is
Absolutely.
safe.
Stay diligent. Don't take risks like that. It's the risks are too great.
Dr. Kelly, what are some of the kind of the emotional and behavioral signs that parents might overlook that could actually be a trauma response?
Honestly, you know what, Tanya? Okay, so there are some, like, yes, a kid that's isolating, a kid that's regressed, a child that's being bullied, a child that's bullying, like, unfortunately, I've seen and heard both sides of the spectrum. Like, it kind of blew my mind, but I had two of my participants in my research who are both being abused by their biological parent. That blows my mind that that goes on. It's way more common than we think. Way more common, unfortunately. But both of those boys became so focused on wanting to create a better life for themselves, they threw themselves into their schooling and became straight A students. Would you ever suspect a straight A student as a symptom of abuse? I know I probably wouldn't, right? But so in younger children, they're often going to have somatic complaints, mommy, my tummy hurts, or, regressing and doing the bedwetting thing, that kind of stuff, or not being able to sleep, falling asleep in class. This can be because it's not safe at home or because they're having nightmares. You get into older children, they got a chip on their shoulder. Sudden change in character is a huge one. So let's say, for example, a mom is quite close to her son and now all of a sudden he's distant, wants nothing to do with her. I mean, I think parents might, I'm not a parent myself, I'm sorry, but this is what other experts say, but you don't want to chalk up this sudden distancing as just the boy hitting puberty. And if it's coupled with a few other things like, well, now he's dropped basketball or he's dissociated himself from all his friends or he's broke up with his girlfriend, a couple other major things at the same time, those are definitely red flags.
Fantastic. Good to know, and good for the full parents to kind of, again, just stay alert, stay aware. We know that when male sexual abuse remains hidden, when our survivors cannot speak about what's actually happened, that there are much higher rates of suicide and overdose. Can you tell us a little bit about what the research says about the mental health toll of abuse on survivors?
Yeah. And they don't report a lot of these statistics anymore, unfortunately. I've been looking for fresh statistics. I don't remember the year that this is from, but men who have histories of sexual abuse are 13.5 times more likely to die of suicide. And Tanya, I say that, I also want to add the caveat that boys and men are a lot less likely to recognize themselves as victims of abuse, right? Because of all this, what's acceptable in society and a lot of other reasons. Boys aren't victims, so I must have liked it. Like, they often rewrite their own stories, even though it was horrible. They'll try to convince themselves they liked it because, maybe, for example, they tell a teenage friend and that friend says, oh, you're lucky. Now they're, oh, crap, I should have liked that, So they're rewriting the story in their own head. But boys and men with known histories of sexual abuse are 13 and a half times more likely to complete suicide and 30 times more likely to die of an accidental overdose, right?
Oh, it's devastating, absolutely devastating. And again, we look at them as these little boys who then grow up and just hold so much. They contain so much their entire life. Dr. Kelly, when we rewind a little bit, and I'm almost guaranteeing we have some parents or caregivers who are listening in right now who are worried about their own child, what do you want them to know?
Well, that if they, are brave and take the appropriate steps, that their boys can grow up to live normal, healthy lives, despite the fact that this has happened, that they can recover from it, but that, it could be difficult to do the right thing.
And what would be the first thing that they could do? What would be the first step?
Well, I mean, I guess I talk about that in my book. Actually, there's a whole chapter on how to manage this, and I'm telling like the readers that it depends on the urgency of the situation. So, for example, if your boy is home for the whole week and he's not going off to camp, he's not presenting as suicidal, that kind of stuff. Maybe do a little bit of homework about some of the struggles that they might be dealing with, about why they might not, be disclosing, that kind of thing. Educate yourself first. Like I say, if there's no threat of suicide or putting him in harm's way, do a little bit of your own education so that you can respond to him, or so that you can have a bit of language to use on him, like, for example, hey, I noticed you've distanced yourself from me. And sometimes boys do that because they have things that they don't want to share with their parents, secrets they want to keep or whatever, or because they're confused about something. Like, just get the language, make it safe, create that safe environment, take, maybe take him out for dinner or fishing or something like that, just alone, where you can have that private, dedicated space where they have children need opportunity and like the authenticity of their parents' attention to feel safe to disclose, right? They're not going to do it off the cuff typically.
Such important words, Dr. Kelly. I think that foundation of I'm here, I'm listening, I'm not going to judge, you're not going to be in trouble is huge, 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 huge.
Yes, you're not going to be in trouble. That's very huge. Absolutely. And that is actually part of the grooming process. Since you brought that up, Tanya, in the grooming process, offenders will often let their victims, future victims, do things they're not allowed to do, because it bonds them, right? They have this bond of secrecy. And then, they also leave the boy with this confusion, like, you're going to be in trouble too if you tell anybody, because you did this. You weren't supposed to drive a truck. You weren't supposed to drink. You weren't supposed to smoke. And you did this, right? You did it on your own accord, and your parents are going to find out about it, so the boy doesn't want to get in trouble. That's a good point. You tell the boy, like, it doesn't matter what you've done, just tell me what's going on, Like, we'll deal with consequences later.
Dr. Kelly, for everybody listening in, if there was just something that you want them to hold on to from this interview in protecting their boys, what would it be?
Just that we can do better. We know better, right? Like I say, we're not creating this, Tanya, by talking about it. We're just shining light on it. We don't have to be afraid of this. We know better than we did before. We have the ability to prevent this. We just need to educate ourselves.
Education is key. And I think, as you said throughout this interview, when we are aware and curious, it creates a whole world of safety for our children.
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Kelly, where can everybody find out more about your work? Where can they buy your books?
I have a website, kellipalfy.com. My books are available there, or on Amazon, or Chapters, wherever you buy books. They don't necessarily keep them on the shelves. Chapters has told me that they only bring it's in their system, but you have to order them in, that kind of stuff. Unless a lot of people come in and start asking for it, then they'll put it on the shelf.
Okay.
But Amazon.
Yeah, and your website's fantastic. There's lots and lots on your website. We will make sure to link it in the description below. Dr. Kelly, this work is so incredibly important, and I feel so honored to spend time with you, because you are creating a voice for many people who often feel very, very silenced.
Well, thank you, Tanya.